lot to chew over the latest big numbers, and we're still doing sectoral analysis, dissected of the second quarter GDP score, as you've heard since Monday. The CEO at Cowrie Asset Management is also a financial analyst and the head of trading, Johnson Chukwu, joining us to look at these numbers. Of course, as we're dissecting them, and you're trying to understand what this means for you. Good morning. It's good to have you here.
My pleasure.
Thank you. It's a very busy day, executive time on a Tuesday, the first trading day of the week. I know how important this is for you and your team. What's your first reactions to these numbers? 0.5%, the word is on the street, all sector, non-oil sector, even financial services sector.
Well, I think it's emotionally uplifting to the extent that you have a feeling that, look, today or tomorrow is going to be better than today. It's actually dampening when you consider the fact that your economy is contracting. And the contraction means people will lose more people will lose their jobs, that the income of households is also shrinking. But once your economy begins to expand, you have a feel-good feeling that, look, the future is looking better. Irrespective of the fact that the growth is very marginal. But the fact that you have moved away from contraction, where your economic side, the size of the economy was actually shrinking, to an expansion, gives the household, the individual trader, and even the government the right feeling that, look, we need to work towards a better tomorrow.
It's very interesting, and I like the phrase, emotionally uplifting. We're going to get to the emotional side of this because Nigerians are quite emotional as far as the GDP is concerned. But we have a few folks on Twitter who are watching the show and of course, reading the numbers, and there's a lot of interactions. And this is what someone, Oyebo Ade says, that's on Twitter. He says, I observed the first quarter GDP figure, which for Q1 was revised to 0.91. It's a negative, from 0.52. And he asked the question, is there any reason why, and how are we sure this 0.5 growth won't be revised? When we say revised GDP figures, can you analyze that for? Okay,
basically what happens is that, you see, normally, the last month of the quarter is based on estimate, not an actual figures. So what the Statistician General does is that they compile the figures for the first 2 months based on actual or historical figures. And the last month of each quarter, in most instances, will be an estimate. So when the actual figures come in, they will revise the actual performance of that in that quarter. And that's actually why, if you watch, virtually in every quarter, they will give you the GDP figures and subsequently come to revise it based on actual figures for the last month. And if you recall, each month accounts for about 33% of the GDP performance. So what the revision you are seeing that you saw in the first quarter from a contraction of 0.52 to a contraction of 0.91 was because, obviously, the figures for March that we are reported as integral part of the first quarter GDP was an estimated figure.
Is that a standard practice all over the world?
Yes, otherwise the period it will take to announce the GDP figure will be too long. Remember, you are collecting data from economic activities around the country.
Thousands and thousands.
That is it. So if you want to wait until you have exactitude, then you're going to arrive at the time when the GDP figure will be announced at the time when it has no relevance.
So it's a lot coming about audited and unaudited financial statement, something like that.
Yeah, close to that.
Close to audited and unaudited figures. But you can still take the unaudited figures to the market.
Yes, absolutely.
And make investment
it's
decisions.
for planning purposes. By the time you see the GDP figures and you see the sectorial performance, it guides decision makers on what the right steps to take in driving the activity.
That's where I'm going, and that's the reason why you are here. When we say the GDP figures, it's a little bit of a look back. Okay, so that was second quarter. We're now towards the end of the few weeks to the end of the third quarter. So we're saying, what does these numbers mean for, well, if you're a business executive, if you're a business leader, if you're policymakers, in terms of what is doing well and what is not doing well? Can I also use it as an investor if I'm doing foreign direct investment, or I'm doing portfolio investment, or I'm a local investor who are doing private equity or whatever?
Absolutely. You see, basically for an investor, you invest in economies that are growing. Similarly, if you want to appraise an investment portfolio, you start with what they call, you have bottom-up approach or top-to-bottom approach. So if you're going to adopt the top-to-bottom approach, you have to start disaggregating the national economy. that you want to invest in, you go to the different sectors before you go to the individual firm. You're not likely going to invest in a sector that is not growing or contracting, unless you could actually determine that there's a one-off event that led to that contraction. If you have a trend of a sector that is contracting over a period of time, investors will shy away from such investment. So when you see the GDP figures and you look at the performance of the individual sectors, then it will guide investors, including foreign portfolio and foreign direct investors, on those sectors of the economy that are of great promise, those sectors that are growing. You see, one of the challenges we had was when the economy was contracting, until virtually every analyst was of the same opinion that the economy is going to reverse. Investors pulled back from investing in the country because you cannot throw your money into an economy that is shrinking, which means opportunities for wealth creation are also reducing. But now that the economy has turned the corner, which I said, look, it's psychologically, it's emotionally uplifting. It gives you the impression that, look, if I invest in these sectors or in this economy, the prospects that my investment will expand or grow is higher than when I invest in an economy that is contracting. So this also gives you an investor guide on which sector to invest in and a general guide on the Nigerian economy.
You talk to business executives, you talk to investors, big and small. Again, you talk to government officials and policymakers. What's the sense of two things in terms of confidence back in the economy and in financial services, whatever, wealth creation, where you operate on a daily basis, and then in terms of outlook of moving forward and where you think this level of confidence or optimism back in the economy is concerned? Are they looking at real estate? What sectors are they looking at?
Well, generally, if you look at sectorial sectors of interest, the financial services sector have been of great interest to investors. We are seeing foreign direct investors buying into Nigerian owned or Nigerian operated financial institutions. We've seen an increase in the investment in Union Bank. We've seen a foreign insurance company buying Ensure. So you are seeing in the financial services industry, you see, the foreign direct